When it came to Guardians of the Galaxy being the film that James Gunn would direct for Marvel Studios, there was quite a few conversations that happened before we got the final version we ended up seeing as part of the MCU. Now James Gunn reflects on that, and we have some interesting details on the original direction and more. So as we get into this, I will have a few pieces of concept art from the original Guardians of the Galaxy of what could have been. And I think many people will distinctly recall the specific piece of artwork that was released that sort of gave us our first look where everything looks very different than what we ended up getting. Especially Groot, and Rocket was definitely a character that went through many different iterations, if you will. Now recently, James Gunn opened up a little bit about some of the ideas and things he used as a sort of pitch towards the type of approach they were looking at, specifically citing the likes of Alien and Blade Runner with this darker science fiction look to it that would go on and evolve. And he said he did mention Star Wars because, let's be real, if you're mentioning a space adventure, you gotta mention Star Wars, but he said it wasn't like the movie that he wanted to focus on. Instead, he used that as a sort of, here's an amalgamation of everything. And he said he took it back to Star Wars to sort of line up how he wanted the dynamic of characters to work. Like, for example, using C-3PO and Chewbacca as the basis for the likes of Rocket Raccoon and Groot, and saying that much like Star Wars, he wants Guardians to be its own thing, but that has obvious connections to other science fiction works that are very familiar. And this was then also applied to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, since they already knew what Guardians 1 and that world looked like. They would go further down that route and establish more of their own vision, if you will, which I think ultimately, I think many people will agree probably is the best way to do it. Because if you look at Guardians 2, that definitely has some unique things in the MCU that aren't anywhere else, specifically the locations they go, and I'm glad that they further leaned into that other than going back to, let's be real, the basics. Because the moment you say Blade Runner, everybody knows what Blade Runner looks like. You know, you got the smokestacks, you got the dark, like, clouds everywhere, even in the middle of the day. It's rainy, you got the big giant billboards in the middle of the city, you got like corporation stuff everywhere. You generally don't want that, right? Because that's such a trope at this point. But they did use elements of that as you see it where it goes and where it could fit properly. And it's better that it was used subtly than all up in your face in every frame, because then it loses its own identity.